Hello, I'm RetroJules and welcome to World of Tanks. This is my T57 E1 American Tier 9 medium tank. I've previously reviewed this tank and absolutely loved it. I've loved this tank from the off. It does have limitations, it does have frustrations, and on paper, if you were to compare this to other tanks, you'd probably think, well, why would I bother? And the main reason is because it's a typical American tank, i.e. quite manoeuvrable, good gun depression, pretty good damage, not accurate, and poor penetration. And it's the accuracy and the penetration that absolutely let this tank down. Now, if you saw my retro update, which I did a few weeks or months ago, and told you sort of what I was doing with the game, I'd played all the light tanks and I've now moved on to the medium tanks, and that for me is quite a logical step, and it works really well, especially with this tank, because at tier 9 I've obviously been playing this tech tree for quite a long time, and it's taken me 2 years to sort of get to this stage, not just playing this tank but generally in the game, and then focusing on this tank. It's taken me 2 years to sort of get to almost the end of this tank, and because the accuracy on this tank is limited, you're almost automatically thinking that you've got to aim for the soft spots, which is something you do if you've been playing light tank. It's almost an automatic thing to do. You don't assume that you can get penetration. So going on to this tank, you almost play this as a light medium tank. It's effective hull down, it does deflect shots, but it hasn't really got any armour. It's nicely manoeuvrable. On this tank I've got coated optics, so I can kind of use it as a sort of relatively effective spotting machine. Ideally it'd be great if you could put binoculars on this tank, but because of its weaknesses there probably isn't really room. So with the coated optics I've got vertical stabilizers just so I can shoot on the move and keep that reticle under control when I'm shooting and moving the turret, and vents just to sort of try and improve the load time a little bit, really, because you can't carry a gun rammer on this because it's an auto loader, so vents are the next best thing. But I paid for camouflage on this tank, and I've got quite a well trained crew on this tank. They're trained up in Brothers in Arms, Smooth Ride, Sixth Sense and Snapshot, and they're currently training in repairs. And yeah, I've really got on with this tank. I think I get on with autoloaders. I quite like that aspect of having a limited supply of shells for a period of time. So you really have to think, right, if I'm going to go in for the kill, will I do enough damage to take that tank out? So do I do it or don't I do it? And then you're thinking about, well, then I'm going to have with this tank 30 seconds to reload. So where am I going to relocate to while I reload that's safe? Do I hide? Do I push forward? And I quite like that aspect of that extra element of thinking within the game. So yeah, so I'm focusing on the medium tanks at the moment, and like with any tank, I find when you're coming towards the last sort of 20-30,000 XP of the tank, I tend to play that tank more because I'm then heading for the next tank in the tech tree, and I find because I'm playing that tank back to back and concentrating on it, suddenly I'll start playing really well and start enjoying the game. And I think for me, because I'm always switching perhaps from a light tank to a medium tank to a heavy tank and then to a different tank and then a tank with gun depression and a tank with no gun depression, I don't think I'm good enough to actually adapt to the tank. So when I'm playing one particular tank, I just get the thought process going and start really enjoying it. And this is just one of those games that shows you, you know, I could have almost got myself in a bit of a pickle here because I was just behind the hill and there was just loads of enemies all around, but because I'm a medium tank, I played this sensibly and used it as a support vehicle. I'm not going in head on and taking these tanks on one-on-one. I've got the team behind me And I have found with this tank that you can do an excellent amount of damage, and if you get yourself in the right position on the map, you can pick up a lot of assisted damage. And having those coated optics extending my view range, this is quite an adaptable tank to very well. It's a medium tank, so it's that middle ground of being able to spot. You can play it as a light tank, you can play it almost as a light heavy if you like. You can go in and be an opportunist and help your team out, and that's where this tank really shines. But penetration on this gun is what can really let it down.
Target locked. Enemies looking right at us.
So there we go, just quite a good game. 2 kills, 14 assisted hits, and overall 50,000 silver, 3,900 damage, 2,200 assisted. Just a really good game. First class mastery badge. And the reason I've shown you this footage is because I've come to the end of this tank, and I want to show you what comes next. So I bought this, the Tier 1 Light T1 American Cunningham. Now that's not what you were expecting, was it? Well, don't worry, I did buy this. I just fancied playing the province map again, and unfortunately people don't play Tier 1 anymore, so it doesn't seem to come up. But actually what I did buy was this, the T57 American Tier 10 Heavy. I now have a Tier 10 tank in my garage, and I've transferred the T54 E1 crew into this. I wanted to get off to a good start in this tank, but of course I wasn't going to pay gold to have them fully trained, so I rolled them out as a 75% trained crew, and it is looking to be an absolutely awesome tank. It's still got the 4 shell drum autoloader. It only takes 20 seconds to load. You do 400 damage each shot with 3 seconds between each shell. The penetration goes up to 258, which actually is still less than the Tier 9 British Centurion, but it's enough, and I am really getting on with this tank. And I just wanted to share with you guys the fact that I have now got a Tier 10 tank in my garage, and I've had some really good gameplays in it. So we're on Helbron, and it's a Tier 10 game, and we're top tier, hurrah! And that's always going to be the case with this tank, because I am now in a top tier tank. I never have to look over my shoulder again and see which tanks are higher tiered than me. Although that isn't strictly true, because this probably isn't one of the biggest hitting Tier 10 heavies. It's very light on armour to the sides and back. You can't be overly aggressive with it. It's early days, so I'm playing this with a 75% trained crew. And to get from 75% to 99 took me about 2.5 hours one evening. I was just having awesome games back to back, and admittedly the crew weren't great. Their accuracy was dreadful. I was missing lots of shots. I wasn't fully aiming a lot of shots, which is absolutely vital with this tank. But I was still having really good games. I think coming from the T54 E1 to this tank was just very logical, and I'm playing this tank exactly how I played the T54 E1. I'm playing as a support tank, but with a little bit of added aggression. And armor wise, it isn't amazing on the front, but it is really well shaped, and you can play this hull down, you can angle the tank, and I have found that it bounces an awful lot of shots very effectively off the front. The accuracy is already improved. It's 0.35 from the 0.4 that the T54 E1 had. It does 35 kilometers an hour. It has the same depression of 8 degrees. I've equipped this exactly the same as the T54E1. It's got vertical stabilizers on it, it's got coated optics, and it's got vents. It's got the same crew. It's got the T54E1 crew in it. So we've got the Brothers in Arms, we've got the Smooth Ride, we've got Sixth Sense, we've got Snapshot, and they're training in repairs. And when they've trained in repairs, because they haven't got far to go with that one, I'm then going to put clutch braking on this because it's just a little bit lumpy to turn when it's static, and I just want to improve its mobility a little bit, because actually it's quite a mobile heavy tank. So I've done absolutely no research on this tank. This isn't a review by any means. I've not looked at any videos to see how to play this tank. I've just bought it and played it as a medium, and I can do very little wrong. I have had one tier 10 tank before. That was a year ago, so it took me a year to get my first tier 10 tank. That was also an American tank. That was the T110E5, and that came after the tier 9 M103, which I really love, but the 110E5 I just did not get on with. It was costing me a fortune to play, couldn't play it, and there's one of two reasons for that. It was either perhaps not the right tank for me, or didn't really know how to play the tank, which is highly likely, but also I think I was playing tier 10 games way too early in my tanking career. I wasn't ready for it. I wasn't good enough at the game. So a year later, so we're 2 years of playing now, and 11,300 battles into the game, and felt like I was kind of ready to give it another go, and I do brilliantly in this tank. The first few games admittedly were rubbish, but once I got the crew trained up and Sixth Sense started kicking in and the accuracy started kicking in, I could do very little wrong. I also had some rubbish games, and they cost me £5, £6, £10,000 to play. But actually, once I got to grips with, once the crew were trained and I got to grips with this tank, I'm easily making 20 to 40,000 silver in each game. It's really paying for itself, and the real key is if you can stop this tank getting trashed, sometimes easier said than done, then that money that you save on repairs to the tank pays dividends, and the games pay really, really well. And yeah, so I wanted to, this is it. So the first tier 10 didn't work, I scrapped it, I sold it. It cost me 6 million at the time, and World of Tanks have had their tier 10 tanks on offer with 20% off. And when I was playing the T54E1, I was about 50,000 XP short, but I had it in shared XP, and I don't normally use my shared XP unless I'm really desperate to unlock normally a package on a weak tank that I'm grinding just to try and get a decent gun, but I'm not really grinding anything at the moment. So the T54E1 certainly wasn't a grind. I could have played it on and on, but I knew that by the end of November that they were going to pull the 20% off the tier 10 tanks, and I quite fancied saving myself 1.2 million squidlies. So I used the shared XP and bought this, and I was then umming and ahhing about, well, do I transfer my T54E1 crew into it? I really like the T54E1, and do I like that because I've got a well-trained crew in it with some really good perks and skills, and do I want to risk losing that? But the flip side of that was, do I want to go into a tier 10 tank, into tier 10 battles with no skills on the tank, you know, not even Sixth Sense? And I thought, well, I'm going to transfer them because the tanks play the same, so the skills work on both tanks. And I thought, if I do get on with this tank, the chances are I probably won't play the T54E1 because I've now got the heavy version of it, which has better penetration, slightly better damage, but a much quicker reload, and it is just quite an awesome killing machine. And so that's what I did. I transferred them in. Really glad I've done it. And I just wanted to show you some gameplay. I've had some really good games. Nothing, you know, nothing truly amazing. But what's quite nice is because I've always played light tanks, I'm heading into the medium tanks. This has obviously got me into a heavy tank, but I play it as a medium. And suddenly I'm doing damage of 4,000 to 6,000 and picking up assisted damage, because I'm also using this as a spotting machine, because I'm playing as a medium. I've got the coated optics on it, and that is working really well for me. And I'm going to play this tank for another few weeks or so. I'm actually going to research the tank and see what its real strengths are and how it should be played, do a bit of homework, play it more to get my own personal views on it, and then I'm going to do what is going to be my first tier 10 tank review, which I'm really looking forward to, because it's a heavy, so I can start talking about armour for the first time. And because it's a tier 10, I feel like I should go into a lot of detail when I review this tank, because if you guys are going to listen to my review and commit to playing up to that tank, that's a lot of months of playing to get to tier 10, so it's got to be the right tank for you, and this is absolutely the right tank for me. I've noticed it still does have limitations, that penetration is a little bit of an issue still. I do have to be careful, which is why I'm playing it as a medium, and I'm not just auto aiming everything. I'm carefully aiming for lower glacis and panels on the tank that are weak, and that's how I'm playing the tank. And it's a good tank. So this E50's given me a little bit of grief, and the end of this game doesn't have a happy ending for me. But I've had a few happy endings, but I just sort of felt this game was one of the better games to watch. And we're a tank down, and there's a Japanese heavy out there. And I can't give you too much information on this game, and the reason being is I'm watching it in very low definition. Because of the way I'm recording this, I'm actually playing this through the studio editor, and I can't read half of the writing on the screen because the resolution is dreadful. But even with dreadful resolution, you can see that my tank has been destroyed. But just wanted to show you this is what I would sort of class as a fairly good game in this tank. And let's see how we did. 37,500 silver, 1,600 straight XP, 6,000 damage, a class 3 mastery, 1,500 blocked. It does deflect shots quite effectively off the front. And hey, Retro comes top in his tier 10 tank. So there you have it. I've got a tier 10 T57 in my garage, and we'll be doing a review relatively soon on this, what I think is already a really awesome tank. It's taken me 2 years to be ready for tier 10 and to get a tank that I think is suitable to me, and I'm really looking forward to training the crew up and playing to my best ability. So hope you enjoyed the video. Keep safe, keep tanking, and I'll see you soon.